This is the moment of reckoning between human nature and the force of nature, the tipping point of our collective future. Join us for a selection of the best web videos on climate and energy innovation. Right here, right now, on this planet.
Today, the good and bad about methane. First, the bad news. Actor Leonardo DiCaprio narrates the film Last Hours, tracing the relationship between global warming and methane.
The argument is over. We are now in an era where humans shape the destiny of our planet. 97% of climate scientists agree that man-made climate change is real and happening right now. Geologists and climatologists are finding that a rapid climate event is happening right before our eyes. Now consider this. Unthinkable and terrifying as it may seem, nearly all life on Earth could go extinct because of man-made climate change. Here's why.
It's hard to imagine Earth without life. We take life for granted, but life has not always flourished here. The Earth has experienced dramatic loss of life, or what we call mass extinctions, 5 times over the course of geologic history. Each one of these events has resulted in the loss of more than half of all life on Earth. And the largest and most devastating of all was the Permian mass extinction. Almost all life on Earth disappeared.
Permian mass extinction is, in essence, just the greatest crisis that life on Earth has ever suffered.
By the end of the Permian mass extinction, 95% of all life on the planet was dead. And why is this important today? Because today, a 6th extinction is underway, one that will test the survival of not just human civilization, but possibly of the human species itself. And it bears a horrifying resemblance to several previous global warming-driven events, like the Permian mass extinction.
I think it is certainly extremely significant that a lot of the main crises of the past are associated with global warming, and so with obvious implications for the present day.
When we think of extinctions, we think of the dinosaur-killing KT mass extinction, which was triggered by a sudden catastrophic collision with a meteorite. But the most deadly force behind all extinctions isn't from outer space. It's from underground, underwater, and under the ice, where trillions of tons of carbon lies in wait in the form of frozen methane. If this methane melts and is released into the atmosphere, it will produce a sudden and massive global warming. During the Permian mass extinction, greenhouse gases were released by volcanic eruptions in an area that is today called the Siberian Traps. These, along with the heat from the lava flow itself, warmed the atmosphere of the Earth by at least 6 degrees Celsius. That much global warming took a huge toll on land, animals, and plants, but far worse, it warmed the oceans enough that methane, frozen deep under the sea, melted and was released into the atmosphere. That enormous release of methane, a powerful greenhouse gas, pretty much doubled the level of global warming and killed off over 95% of all life, both on Earth and in the seas.
It's a kind of a scary thought, but maybe one of the best geological analogs for the kinds of rapid changes in climate and CO2 in the atmosphere that we're going to witness now and for the next few centuries, potentially, is this end Permian time when, as you know, that culminated in one of the largest mass extinctions that we know of.
And of course, looking at these ancient events shows us times of global warming, and the atmosphere doesn't care whether the carbon dioxide comes from human activity
or from a volcano. It has the same end effects.
The numbers are very similar from some of the giant lava flows in Siberia. The amount of carbon dioxide they release is very similar to the sort of fossil fuel burning carbon dioxide release that we're doing sort of decade after decade today.
Today, carbon dioxide in the atmosphere is above 400 parts per million, a level not seen any time in the history of human life on Earth.
We are increasing CO2 levels in the atmosphere at rates far greater than any of the most rapid events that happened in the deep geological past. There is no precedent for what we are doing to the atmosphere. It is an uncontrolled experiment.
As you warm the environment, that causes the release of more carbon, which is either methane or carbon dioxide, into the atmosphere. That in turn increases the rate of warming, which releases even more carbon. And you can see how this begins to cause a so-called positive feedback, or just an ever-increasing amount of heating.
At the end of 2012, the World Bank issued a report warning governments around the world that a 5-degree temperature increase is likely unless drastic action is taken to curb carbon emissions. And a 6-degree increase was, according to some scientists, all it took to pass a tipping point during the Permian mass extinction. There's a virtual scientific consensus that 6 degrees was all it took to initiate the PETM. In both cases, it involved massive releases of methane.
We know that in the bottom of the seafloor, large parts of the ocean margins have methane in a solid phase. And what happens is that when you change the temperature, it can dissociate, or you can think of it as melting this frozen methane phase. And so the idea is that during some of these events, we have some triggering or initial cause that forces the ocean temperatures to warm, especially in deep parts of the ocean. And then that dissociates or melts this solid methane phase, which then goes into gas, which can get into the ocean and the atmosphere.
Methane is way worse than carbon dioxide. It's inert right now in the soil. It's not affecting anybody in any way. When you warm it and it becomes a gas, then it starts acting immediately as a greenhouse gas. So this is an immediate and very short-term threat to planetary civilization.
The risk is a so-called runaway greenhouse, which is the self-correcting mechanism cease to kick in, and you heat by a little bit and you release methane. That then causes excess heating, and you release more methane, and so it goes on.
The sea ice is disappearing very fast. It's the biggest, most rapid single change in any aspect of the planet's surface. When the sea ice retreats, as it's been doing, the shallow shelf seas warm up, and this warm water extends down to the seabed. The seabed warms up, it releases the methane, and you get plumes of methane coming up, and these have been seen by expeditions that go out to areas like the East Siberian Sea. We're seeing just big areas of massive bubble plumes of methane coming up to the surface, and that's starting to increase the level of methane in the atmosphere.
That's probably the biggest issue that we face. Sea level change is a big one, too, a very expensive one to manage, but the methane release from the tundra, once that gets underway, we reach a point where we lose the option of having an effective mitigation strategy. We can always abandon coastlines, but if we activate enough of the carbon reservoir in the terrestrial biosphere, that becomes unmanageable. So that's unfortunately kind of a doomsday scenario that our trajectory is pointed to.
While it appears we've already passed the tipping point for an ice-free Arctic in the summer, other tipping points could be centuries, generations, or just years down the road. The big danger about tipping points is that you can only recognize them when it's too late to do anything about it. So why should we risk these catastrophic events? In the case of climate change, our planet's life support system is at stake. So it is our obligation to take every precaution to stop it.
We must begin to reduce carbon emissions dramatically. Yet at this moment, we're facing a crisis of world leadership. Powerful fossil fuel corporations are fighting to monetize the trillions of tons of carbon they own that's still underground. Every day, we are witness to more climate-related events. The world community, global citizens, governments, leaders, NGOs, and corporations must come together, step forward, and take decisive action. In order to combat this issue, we must create the largest movement in human history, and it could mean our very survival. Let's not wait until we reach more tipping points. This is the most urgent of times and a most urgent message. To learn more and join the movement, go to greenworldrising.org.
But methane has a good side. In India, an Ashden Award-winner makes clean-burning fuel from farm waste.
Tamil Nadu, India, an agricultural state where many families own livestock. Vivekananda Kendranadep sees this as an opportunity to promote biogas as a package, an energy source for cooking, combined with a source of fertilizer to boost productivity and income for farmers. This slurry has proved to be equally important to a small farm as the methane produced. It's mixed with other ingredients such as worm compost to produce a highly effective fertilizer. As well as use on crops, farmers are encouraged to use it to grow azolla, an aquatic plant that can be used as animal feed. An innovation is the construction of the digester dome from strengthened bamboo instead of brick and cement, making it more economic. This scheme means the plentiful raw material of cattle dung is being used in 2,000 plants across Tamil Nadu, benefiting around 12,000 people directly.
See more films of Ashden Award winners at ashden.org and watch Last Hours and other videos at greenworldrising.org. Then tell us what you think at thisplanet.tv.